So,
Chevra Torah.
Torah. Amen.
all right, we're now live streaming. And it is now noon. It is noon in Atlanta. And in Atlanta, I conduct Chevra Torah at 9 o'clock Atlanta time. So we're going to do it more, and hopefully I will be wiser. Hi, Larry. Be wiser than I was the first time I conducted this. It's really good to be with you. And I'm trying to be coherent. Last night we had a very, very, very good night. Tamara, I saw you on. Are you here, Tamara? Yes, Tamara, to report to you that I delivered the sermon on evil last night. There was a very good-sized crowd, and
She can watch it.
okay, well, I want to get a descriptive.
He was absolutely outstanding, and the entire congregation was a little bit shocked at the topic, but they paid strict attention.
So we had rapt attention. I've converted a large number of people to evil, and that's great. So thank you for your assistance, Tamara. And things went really, really well. The only thing that I had not factored in, and that was troubling, you know, that I maintained contact with my Atlanta congregation. And there were two very difficult deaths in the last 3 weeks, month, whatever. And both widows were present. And when I saw them, it made it harder. How do you speak about evil in the presence of mourning people? So that was a thing. And I apologized up front, and I apologized to them individually afterwards. And they both were fine. They both were fine. But that was the only thing that threw me. A little difficult. Okay, calendar, hi. Thursday evening, May 25th, is Erev Shavuot. Please don't lose that if you have, is Erev Shavuot, Thursday evening, May 25th. And there will be study and things like that happening. In terms of checking in, Maya is there, great. In terms of checking in, anyone have anything that you would like to share with the community? And again, I do have to apologize for those of you late. I am squinting because I am using a regular size laptop screen, and it's very difficult for me. Okay, so I am squinting. Okay, anyone want to check in with something, anything happening that you would like to share with the community? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, last week I wasn't here because I was at USC graduation. My daughter graduated from college last week.
Fantastic. Mazel tov, Larry. What's next for her?
Well, writer's strike, because she graduated from the writers program at USC, and there's nothing to do but walk a picket line and network for the next unimaginable period of time.
She graduated college to a picket line.
Yes.
It's a worthy cause, though. Nick and I were on the picket line at Paramount yesterday, along with Adam Schiff, which was fun.
So, that would have been fun. Ray has been at Paramount and at Amazon and a couple of other places in the past week or two. So yes, it's definitely a worthy cause that will bode well for her future career, assuming it ever starts.
Right. Unfortunately, she's going to have plenty of opportunity to walk the line. I think this one's going to go through the summer. But we'll see.
Really,
That's
really?
not pleasant.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
jeez.
All right, that's another piece of good news. Is there anyone else? Merle?
I am proud to say that that Sharon and Jason of the girls are leaving a week from today for Europe, where the girls will be tap dancing their way through Europe in famous old theaters and Euro Disney to start, and then 4 other countries.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So they're very excited. We're very excited, and we'll be watching a lot of live stream because we don't get to go.
Okay, Tamara?
Yes, I have my beloved grandson Jeremiah here for the summer. He has an internship 12 miles away. So he's stuck with his grandmother here. And it has been already a great joy. And it's only the first 24 hours. And we have the rest of the summer.
What's the internship for? What is his internship for?
He is a metallurgist, and he's working in a company that does actually, I just learned, you have to have security clearance.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but it's working with metal. He's a very proficient, he's finishing, this is his last college year, but he's already been working with metal all his life.
Oh, interesting.
Very,
Okay,
very mature, trained, well-trained metallurgist.
That's
It's
wonderful.
amazing.
That is wonderful. I'm also talk for that. We're going to move forward now into our class unless someone else has something else to add. If not, and I do apologize because now I have 2 screens that need to be occupied and I don't see one of them. So please use the electronic hand lifter and I'll try to follow you. Okay, we are beginning Numbers chapter 1, verse 1 and following. Okay, and
What page?
well, we're not going to page it. Just give me a bit of a second.
Okay.
I want to talk for a moment about the name of the book. Okay, and the name of the book is Bamidbar. Bamidbar. And what does the word Bamidbar mean? You can call out if you will.
In the desert.
In the desert, in the wilderness, the desert, the wilderness. And who would like to give me a kind of like impressionistic, what's a wilderness all about? Hi, Mara. Hi, Harv. What's the wilderness? What is a wilderness? Or a desert? What is it?
Open space, isn't it?
Okay, that's a good thing. Open space. Open space. That's good. What else?
No cell phone.
Stacy?
It can be desolate.
Yes, perfect. Great. What else?
No water.
Okay, no water. Eric?
Hot.
Hot. Except deserts at night can be very cold. Can be very cold. It depends. Okay, I see Jeff.
Yeah, no rules, no boundaries, civilization not present.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Thank you. Descriptions. Okay, what do I see here? Any other name? Oh, okay, Donna?
It's a no man's land. It's no particular country, or it's just everywhere. It's everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
Very important.
You don't necessarily know where you are.
It's even, okay, Steve?
It can also be internal and individual specific if people who are in a mental fog or have various issues, I think they're in a wilderness.
Okay. All right, good. Good, can be very confusing, disorienting. Absolutely that. the notion of a wilderness, let's ask a simple question. What makes the Holy Land, Eretz Israel, Eretz HaKodesh, Israel, what makes it special? Give me a help on this. What makes Eretz Israel special? Why is it so unique within Jewish culture? Anybody? Okay, Effie.
Well, it's where the Jews received the Bible.
I'm so glad you said that. Okay, we're going to hold on to that. We're going to hold on to that. Steve?
It's because that's the land that God promised, and there are lots of people trying to run out there and get back every acre of it, which may or may not be a good idea today, but I think that's the heart of it. It's what God promised us and gave to us.
Okay. Does anyone else have a comment before I jump in? Okay, I see Rebecca and then Roy.
The climate is really diverse. It goes from really dry in the south to more green and lush in the north.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is, especially the spring. Roy?
I would say it's a place where we no longer live in a state of nature, but under a code of moral rules and guidance.
Okay, and that, of course, can be one of the negatives as well as positives. But yes, we are disconnected from nature when we no longer live in a wilderness. That is true. Now, where was the Torah given?
The
Where
desert.
was the
On
Torah?
the Sinai Peninsula.
Mount
Tell me
Sinai.
about the
Somewhere.
Sinai Peninsula. It is a wilderness. I mean, you know, you can do scuba diving in Sharm el-Sheikh right now, fine. But the Sinai Desert is a real desert. Risa and I have hiked the Sinai Desert a number of times. The Sinai Desert is a desert. I have shared this with you. It remains one of my great memories. When Israel still held the Sinai, we brought a group to climb Mount Sinai, and our group did climb Mount Sinai. At the foot of Mount Sinai, during the period of the Israeli occupation, there was an Egged bus stop right at the foot of Mount Sinai. So, you know, you slog through the desert, right? You slog through the desert. Oh, there's Mount Sinai. I can almost see Moses. This is great. You get a little bit closer. This is an Egged bus stop, and it was an Egged bus stop.
Huh.
So that's you know, pretty funny. The rabbis make a very big deal out of the fact that Torah was not given in the Holy Land, the Promised Land, the Eretz Israel, Eretz HaKodesh, whatever it is we're going to call it. The Torah was given in the wilderness, not in Tel Aviv, not in Jerusalem, in the wilderness. Now, in this group especially, because you are the talented people you are, give me the sermon. The Torah was delivered in the wilderness. I have two hands up. I see Eric and I see Cindy. Eric,
Hello. I see a blank canvas in the desert and waiting to be decorated and partitioned into various tribes and everything. It's like a canvas waiting for a Van Gogh to paint Starry Night.
You do great stuff. Okay, thank you, Eric. Cindy, then Steve. You're muted, Cindy, and Sorry for that.
They needed rules so they could become organized before they entered the promised land, so they could have a new way of life and know how to behave there.
Okay, but we're going to have to dive deeper. Steve? Steve? You're muted. You people are muting yourselves. Okay.
Many of the commandments relate to the land and how to treat it. And if we don't have that as second nature, people could go in, desecrate the land, and violate all of the commandments before they even realize what they were doing. It's like the football team doesn't take the field without ever having a practice. There are things that have to become part of you so that you can act appropriately when the time is right.
Okay, we're going to take a couple of more answers. I see Donna, then Natalie, and then we're going to stop.
It's because the Torah doesn't belong to anyone in particular. It's not just to the Jews, it's to the whole world. So if it had just been given in the land of Israel, then you'd say the Torah is just for the Jews. Whereas if it's in the wilderness, it could belong to anybody and everybody.
Okay, I'm going to hold on to that. Natalie?
To me, the wilderness means an emptiness where you sort of leave everything that you knew from before. There's a nothingness. You can leave all your ideas from before and take on these new thoughts.
Okay, beautiful. In a sense, the slate is wiped clean in the wilderness, and you can start writing anew. Okay, now, the rabbis in the Talmud took Donna's approach very seriously, very seriously. The Torah was given, carefully phrased, in no man's land, no person's land. It was given in land that belonged to no one. And the point of that is, and this is crucial, and golly, it's something which Jews have a lot of trouble holding on to. The idea of owning Torah is not just for the benefit of the Jewish people. The idea of owning Torah is that you don't really own Torah. It was given in the wilderness to the world. Jews took Torah, and what is the Jewish obligation in terms of dealing with Torah? Take it out there. Take it out there. And I would have to share with you that a lot of Jews do not understand that. The whole point of Jewish education, the whole point of Shavuot and the study, the whole point of all of this isn't to create a generation of self-satisfied Jews, is l'taken et ha'olam, to take the Torah teachings and be a light to the nations, or l'goyim, a light unto the nations. And if all the Jews do is own Torah, then Torah is not being properly respected. Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, how do you reconcile that rather democratic and uplifting view with the heavy layer of regimentation and the elevation of the Levites and the idea that there's a priestly class and that you can only approach God through the priestly class? I mean, there's so much attention given to hierarchy. It would seem to me to contradict that interpretation, that it's for everybody. It seems to me you could argue quite precisely the opposite, that the Torah was given to be handled by a select few and spread to the Jews and anybody else who wanted to come into the tent, but that it was not, in fact, given as a light unto the entire world for everybody to access equally. I'm just curious in your response to that position.
You're no more than curious, you're challenging in a very sharp fashion. Okay, now, Jeff, the truth is that for most Jews, we don't read the Torah through the eyes of the Torah. We read the Torah through the eyes of the prophets and the rabbis. So when I talk about Jews regarding the Torah, the prophets set the path for moving past the narrow parochialism which you properly define and to begin to expand it to what we would call a more universal stage. The rabbis follow up with that. There's something else to hold on to. Along with Torah as the sacred document of the Jewish people, what is the other major literary treasure of the Jewish people?
Talmud.
Who said that?
I did.
Okay, Steve, Talmud. There are two Talmuds. You know this. One is referred to as the Talmud. That's the Babylonian Talmud, but it's often called the Talmud. And the other is Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud. The Talmud we normally talk about, the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. The Babylonian Talmud was created in the diaspora. It's a diaspora document. It was not created in Palestine, Canaan, Promised Land. So the two great literary treasures of the Jewish people do not have their birthplaces in Israel. This is hugely important. This is what allows the rabbis to say that there is, in fact, a mission far beyond Jeff, satisfying the needs of the people of Israel. If you would read Torah, which I would never recommend, straight, unblemished, unadorned, just read. By the way, you have probably never heard a rabbi say, well, if you have problems, go home and read the Torah. Never. It's not what we do. Because we Jews don't venerate the Torah. We venerate the Torah as taught by and understood by the rabbis. That's Torah for us. When I say that Torah has a universal purpose, you take the prophetic statement, or legoyim, you take the rabbinic notion that Torah is to be the value resource for the world, then you have a really fair notion as to how we view Torah. It came out of the wilderness. It belongs to our world. Quick questions, and we're going to pop on. Stacy, and Steve.
Rabbi, when you were saying that the Jews, many Jews take the Torah for themselves and don't push it out to the general world, do you think maybe part of the reason for that is because since Jews have been discriminated against and, pushed aside throughout our history, that the reason they respond that way is because they feel more comfortable with their own tribe?
To be interestingly explicit, during the Middle Ages, some of the most difficult and dangerous events were asking a Jew to debate a Catholic on Jewish values and what Torah and Talmud are really all about. Why dangerous? Because very often the interlocutor, the Catholic person, was someone who was a Jew who converted. And that led a whole bunch of rabbis to wonder whether it is too dangerous to share Torah with the world. Okay, following up on what you said, it's potentially too dangerous. The other side is, yet overwhelmingly, the sharing of the light of Torah is understood to be a massively serious Jewish obligation. So even though there is reluctance and fear, there is still the notion that Torah needs to be taught, that the world needs to hear Torah. Steve.
How do the Haredi think that they are following the obligation to be a light unto the nations and share this with everyone else?
Say this again. I don't have your question. I'm sorry.
How do the Haredi think they are fulfilling that obligation to be a light unto the nations, to share all of this wisdom with everybody? If it's such a core value, how do the people who claim to be sticking very tight to those core values, what are they doing to fulfill that obligation?
One of the things I can tell you, Steve, is that they read the rabbis differently than I do, and I respect that. They read it differently. Secondly, they would probably say that our first task is to reach and touch the hearts and souls of every Jew. And once we have done that, we can go on and touch the hearts and souls of other people. They can say that. One doesn't necessarily have to agree with them, but they do have a response. They don't deny research.
We have to recognize the Chabad amazing outreach.
Yeah, but the Chabad outreach is not to non-Jews. The Chabad outreach is to Jews.
Except that they're out there.
They're out there, definitely.
They're on the streets of Times Square, and they are preaching Torah, if you will.
Absolutely. They are preaching Torah and living Torah and spreading Torah, but within the Jewish community. Hi, Maya. It's good to see you, even though I don't see you. I know you're there. Yes. So the first point I wanted to make is Torah was given in the wilderness. Talmud was given in Babylonia. The two massive literary spiritual creations of the Jewish people are foreign in origin. Jews are not narrowly constrained within geographic boundaries. I want you to hold that. I think it's kind of important that we have a world to deal with much larger than just our own. And if you want to take the Haredi and Chabad notion, and we are ready to deal with the world once we get all the Jews converted, maybe we could say that. But no one would deny that protecting Torah as our own is not sufficient. The Torah was given in a wilderness. I liked some of the other things you said. I like everything you said. In some ways, Torah is a blank slate. In some way, Torah is not confined to a limited geographic area. The wilderness, in some ways, Torah is given a place where the human imagination can roam. All those that you offered are really good. Tamara.
I'd love to share a personal anecdote, if I may. I was studying in Denver, Colorado, because that's where I lived, and we had a visiting scholar from, I was somewhere else, and a visitor from a high elitist institution was asking me, well, where have you learned? Where did you study? With this sort of patronizing voice. And I, being young and intimidated, sheepishly answered, well, I'm studying in Denver, Colorado, and kind of feeling apologetic. And a very good, smart friend of mine turned around and said, remember, Tamara, I said it in front of this other smug colleague, the Torah was given in the wilderness. And I always think about that because my Torah came in Denver, Colorado, not in Boston or New York or Stanford.
Yeah, some of us, maybe all of us, have experienced the same form of parochialism. Yes, yeah. It's not New York. It's not Boston. I think that parochialism is well-founded, but that's my parochialism. Okay, so now we have the book of Numbers. Wait a second. It's Bamidbar. So why is it called in English Numbers? Why? Why is it called English Numbers? Jeffy?
Because in this, in Numbers, we count all the people. So we're counting people.
We had 3 hours ago an incredible conversation about counting and the significance of counting, numbers, size. Did you see the headlines in the New York Times just a little while ago that India has grown larger than China?
Oh.
Yeah, I appreciate the groan. The 1.5 billion for India and China is at 1.45 or something like that. So India is now the largest country in the world. You would know that because if you look on television to see the medical specialists who are reporting on America's health, there are a lot from the Indian subcontinent, and they're all named Gupta. But they are there, and it's kind of like amazing. So India has status because of numbers. Where else? Do you know? Sure you do. Israel just got through fighting a war. And you remember with whom the war was? Remember? Who?
Islamic Jihad.
Thank you. Who said that? Okay. With Islamic Jihad. Who negotiated the ceasefire? Egypt. Anyone know the population of Egypt? 110 million. 110 million. They're a third the size of the United States in population. So Egypt has incredible power and influence because of numbers. How many Jews are there in the world?
11 million?
I'd say 13 million.
15 million.
Okay. The best guess is somewhere between 9 and 16 million. And if you're going to say that does represent a bit of a spread, I would grant you that. The point being for our conversation regarding numbers, that numbers are incredibly political. Incredibly political. We have one set of Jewish demographers who claim that the United States Jewish population is growing past 6 million, that the total population of the Jews in the world is 16 million. There's another group of Jewish demographers that claim 5 million and 13 million. Would someone like to hazard a guess as to why the variation and what the political issue is? What's the political issue? Counting Jews. What's the political issue?
If you're religious or not.
Who's taking the census?
religious is probably a more difficult thing to do, but what else could be there?
Who
Merle?
counts as a Jew?
Well, who makes this count? Who makes the count public?
Well, it's not, well, they're very.
Or who fills out their census saying what they are?
The numbers come from two highly respected academic institutions. And for example, the Brandeis number is 16 million. What's the difference? Don't just tell me between 13 and 16 is 3 million. What's the difference between the two counts? Rebecca.
I always think it comes down to money and funding and money.
Well, I totally love your cynicism. I'm with you, and the cynicism is well-founded, but not necessarily in this case. What makes the difference between 13 million and 16 million, or 5 million and 6 million in the United States? What makes the difference?
How do you define a Jew?
Who's a Jew? We Jews live in a situation in which we have no idea how many Jews are in the world, and we cannot define to our global satisfaction who is a Jew. Other than that, we're fine. Other than that, we're in great shape. So we are a people without a definition.
Well, some people don't admit that they're Jewish. Isn't that it? For protective reasons? They don't want to say.
There are people, Doris, who don't admit that they're Jewish. You have people who are Jews matrilineally. There are Jews who are Jews patrilineally. There are Jews who call themselves Jews who have never converted. They call themselves, they want to live as part of the Jewish community, but they've undergone no conversion. You have Jews who have converted. All those are variables. How do you count them? And it is an astonishing reality that we don't have a clue as to how many Jews there are, because we have no accepted definition of who is a Jew. Okay, I'm looking to see any new hands. I don't want to keep calling the same people, but no other new hands? Okay, Steve, then Stacy.
I was going to say, we also have a problem for many of these issues. The question will be asked how you self-identify. And when we have Jews for Jesus and evangelical Jews and others, those may well be people we don't want included within our numbers. And yet, if you ask how they self-identify, they would say they were Jewish.
Okay, and one of the things that I ended up in a long conversation about this morning already, someone asked about Jews for Jesus. Rabbi, if you say that someone could be a Jew patrilineally, matrilineally, conversion, birth, adoption, whatever, so you would count Jews for Jesus. And that pretty much took a raucous group and made it really quiet as people try to figure out for themselves, how do I answer this without appearing to be bigoted? How do I do this? And then I offered my answer. I first learned that the Latin root coming out of the word define is the same root for finite, limited, that anything that can be defined must have recognizable boundaries, that this is where we start and this is where we end. Now, we live in Los Angeles. I have seen the newspaper listings of we live in Santa Monica, we live here, there, Calabasas, we live here, there, and everywhere. And we live Beverly Hills adjacent. I love Beverly Hills adjacent. I think that is an awesome, by the people use it. We're Beverly Hills adjacent. Okay. All right, cool. So where is the boundary? The rabbis in the Talmud argued, what happens to a Jew who rejects their Judaism? Are they still counted among Jews?
Good question.
Yeah, why the Talmud every once in a while had a good question. The answer they came up with was Yisrael, afal pi shechata Yisraelhu. A Jew, even though he sinned, is still a Jew. Still a Jew. So if you put up a billboard, Stanley Davids rejects Judaism. No. Is Stanley Davids still a Jew? Pardon? Yes. Yisrael, afal pi shechata Yisraelhu.
What if you're baptized?
Pardon?
What if you go get baptized in a Catholic church?
I was going to say, now, if Stanley puts up a sign saying, Stanley recognizes Jesus as Messiah, the rabbis say two things. One, Yisrael afal pi shechata Yisraelhu. But if you make a conscious, active decision to leave the community, you must go through conversion to rejoin it. Which means that if you make an affirmative decision to step outside of Judaism by adopting another religious tradition, you are outside the community. Because you were once Jewish, the path back is simpler than for a regular person who wants to convert to Judaism. But the fact is, you still must be converted. That is to say, using a modern perspective, Jews for Jesus is not Jewish. We can say it, it's defined, and it's clear. You want to become a non-believer, be gesund, be a non-believer. You want to convert to Jews for Jesus or the Catholic Church. Do you remember the story with Brother Daniel? Does that story strike a bell? Brother Daniel was a Catholic religious. He was a brother in the Catholic Church. His family was Jewish. Brother Daniel wanted to come to Israel under Chok HaShvut, under the law of return. Brother Daniel was rejected by the Misran HaPanim, the Interior Ministry, and he brought the case to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled that since Brother Daniel had made an affirmative decision to be Catholic, he is not to be admitted to Israel under the law of return. If Brother Daniel had simply stopped being Jewish, do nothing, he would have been admitted. Questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I actually think Stacy was first.
Okay, thank you. Rabbi, I just wanted to mention one other, we're talking about different variables with the degree of numbers and so on. And we were talking about the numbers of Jews in the world. But one of the things I think about with respect to the number of Jews is their relative influence per capita on society, technology, medicine, intellect, intellectual pursuits. I mean, if you look at, here we are, we're like a tiny little people, but look at the contributions that the Jews have made to the world on a per capita basis. It's incredible. And
Yeah.
so,
But Tracy, with
Yeah.
respect, Stacy, I'm having a bad morning. That doesn't go to the definition.
okay.
Jews have done magnificent things. I married Risa. How much more do you want out of life? Okay. But that doesn't add to my definition of being a Jew, except Risa never would have dated me were I not. Actually, were I not a Reformed Jew, she would not, and this is true, have dated me if I were a conservative Jew. But, okay, please, Jeff.
Yeah, we've been talking as if the definition is in the hands of the person who's defining themselves. And I would suggest a more cynical definition. Two things come to mind. One's a joke and one is something serious. I'll start with the serious thing. My grandfather, when I asked him when I was in high school why it was important to be Jewish, and he said, when the world comes looking for Jews, you'll know. And the other, which is a joke, is a man returns to his roots on the Lower East Side of New York. He has renounced Judaism. He's become a Christian Scientist. He's walking around in his camel hair coat, and he's being followed by a hunchback who lives in the neighborhood. And he says, that used to be my school. And he said, that used to be my synagogue. I used to be a Jew. And the hunchback looks at him and says, I used to be a hunchback.
I get it. I get it. Okay, I used to be a hunchback. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just because it's 12:48 or 9:48, it depends on what your religious preference is. I have a couple of things I want to do. The counting of Jews is fraught. That is to say, in the Torah, even in the books of Kings, counting Jews might very well lead to a plague. Counting Jews may very well lead to a disaster. The Torah, and tomorrow I'm going to come back to you because I got pushed on this morning and I wasn't good with the answer. When was it that counting people became fraught? I answered, it's part of the generic superstitious background of the ancient Middle East. And I said, I have to leave it there. It wasn't uniquely Jewish, but it's something that was absorbed into Judaism. Is there anything else? Why does God, besides all the good sermons, why does God say counting without a divine mandate is forbidden? Why?
Well, one theory, I'm not too good at it, but one theory that I learned from Jacob Wright is they used to count people for the sake of military census. That was the reason you counted people. And therefore, it was a way of endangering people by counting them and registering them for military service. So that was the ancient way of using counting of people, and the biblical tradition takes a position against that. And then later on, it gets more practically concerning because Jews are counted for taxes and money and military use.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I mean, right. But the bottom line is going to be, it's cloudy. All that we can assert is counting Jews very fraught. I need to move quickly. Ray?
Thank you. I actually have a question. You said something that reached me as controversial, So my question is actually, where is it said that it is forbidden to count without a mandate from God? I'm not familiar with this, but it sounds like I certainly should be. So where do we find it?
It's certainly found in the Torah. It's certainly found in the Torah. It's certainly found when King David tried to create a census, and there was a plague that registered because he was not mandated by God to do it. I think it is fair to say it is a normative biblical view that one ought not to count Jews. Okay, Effie.
Yes, when I go to Chabad and they want to count to see if they have a minion, they count by saying not 1, not 2, not 3, not 10. We have a minion.
Yes. Now, I want to go with that a little bit. Because we've got just a bunch of things. When counting for a minion, there is in fact a normative Jewish verse that has 10 words in it. And traditional Jews will say, Hoshia et amecha, varech et nachalatecha, ureim v'nasim ad ha'olam. Oops, 10 words, we have a minion. So they would give each person one word of that 10-word phrase, and when they hit 10, they got it. So that's a fun thing to do. We don't like counting. In the Second Temple, the Kohen Gadol needed to allocate jobs. He had a surplus population problem, too many Kohanim, too little work. And so each day, the Kohen Gadol would ask among the Kohanim, we have 14 things that need to be done today. If you want to get a chance to be among the 14, get over into this group. Okay? And then they would be arranged in a circle. The turban of one of the Kohanim would be removed. And at that point, the Kohen Gadol would count to 10. How would he count? Here's the deal. Donna, wherever you are, I see Donna. Where are you, Donna? Donna, where are you? Do I see you? Would love this. The priests, the Kohanim, held out a finger like this, not the other finger, do not make jokes, held out a finger like this. And the Kohen Gadol would count not the volunteering priests, but their fingers. Now, this is true. What's the Hebrew word for finger? Risa says etzba. Etzba works. Etzba is a finger. Now, Risa, what's the Hebrew word for voting? Lehatzbiah. In other words, the contemporary word for voting is based upon the Kohanim sticking out their finger to be counted in the days of the Second Temple. When I discovered this, I was like, whoa, that's really interesting. That's lahatzbiah, to finger. And that's what counting is all about because of the Jewish allergy to count. I'm going to end There's so much here and it's beautiful. One rabbi asked, in the book of Numbers, in chapters 1 through 4, you come up with a total of how many Jews. Now remember, they were counting only 20, I think 20 to 50, the military eligible males. Answer, they came up with about 603,000. Now, on the one hand, extrapolating, that gives us 2.5 million to 3 million Jews in the desert. Do not for a moment, I believe that's historical, okay? But if you take the 603,000 and they're the men between 20 and 50, okay, Steve, bye. You have 603,000. Then the rabbi said, how many words are there in the Torah? How many letters, excuse me, in the Torah? Answer, 603,000. This is the Torah teaching. When we are together, we create a living Torah. The Jewish people are the spiritual expression of the words and letters of Torah. Do I like that? A lot. Okay, it's sermonizing. But each one of us represents a living letter of Torah. Each one of us is the living Torah. I hadn't heard about that. I loved it. I loved it and I recommend it. And let me just see. Oh, I had this really great stuff. I'm not going to be able to do that. We're going to go now to Kaddish. And in the process, we are going to remember and forgive the parochialism.
Rabbi, you didn't read one verse today.
Forgive the parochialism. I am going to remember the life. I'm looking for my paper here. Is it in there? Thank you. And the little book. The life of Jim Brown. That may mean absolutely nothing to anyone, except when I was growing up, Jim Brown was the greatest football player in Cleveland and in the world. And I just remembered that. Remember, please, Shavuot is coming. And I'm now going to mention those who have passed away during the past month. Carl Kovitz, Michael Edwards, Rabbi Julian Franklin Feingold, Rowena Haas, Louis Goldman, Molly Gold, Jeffrey Kessler, Tammy Leventhal, Karen Levy, Gloria Meyer, Molly Loomer Remoke, Naum Tichman, Sandra Sandy Zwim. And the yortzites that have occurred during the past week: Marion Burke Allen, Edmund Bastime, Jessica Bayer, Lillian Berman, Jenny Berman, Janice Brooks, Sarah Book, Marion Corday, Rahmat Dagan, Musa David, Bertha Davidoff, Samuel Dickman, Marie Dolgener, Betsy Dreisen, Sonia Eiglis, Felix Fells, Charlotte Fenning, Oscar Fem, Millicent Friedman, Jacqueline Furman, Billy Goldberg, Elaine Goldsmith, Michelle Joy Gomberg, Evelyn Gordon, Phil Gore, Samuel Gorin, Charlotte Clayman Green, Alberto Greenberg, Betty Handelman, Francis Hendon, Betty Heyman, Magda Hoffman, Barbara Hornichter, Relba Immerman, Samuel Tzchaki, Paul Jaspin, Ruth Katz, Laura Keith, Gary Kelson, Leonard Koenig, Beatrice Commissar, Joy Copelson, Samuel Cornyn, Arnold Kronstadt, David Lubitz, Philip Mann, Harry Mankoff, Kitty Maslow, Winifred Melman, Diana Mesner, Manafer Danish Moghaddam, Bernard Mogul, Larry Nix, Philip Rand, Harry Robinson, Harry Samuel Ralston, Sam Rosen, Larry Rosenblum, Frank Rosenblum, Ann Rowe, Frida Seda, Mel Saltzman, Eva Schenk, Bertha Shapiro, Myron Sholem, Pamela Schulman, Naomi Schuinger, Gary Sinclair, Henry Sloan, Selma Stone, Bernard Tarrant, Alvin Tramer, Sam Tucker, David Walder, Sonia Walden, Ernest Warsaw, Sheila Wegg, Sarah Wharton, Harvey Yatman, Gablin Farron Zawede, Anita Zellman, Michael Zuckerman, Bertram, Roger Zweig. I apologize for those whose names I mispronounced. If I have omitted any names and you wish to speak their names aloud, please do so now or speak their names in your hearts.
Harold Kushner, who died April 27th.
We bear in mind also the names of those who died in defense of the United States, those who died in defense of the state of Israel, those who died through senseless acts of terror, those who have no one to remember them. We include them all in the words of Kaddish. Yitzgadal, V'yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'alma, Divra, Chirutei, V'amlich, Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, V'agala, V'zman Karim, V'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavarach, Li'olam Li'omei Almayim, Yitbarach, Yistabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudkam Barichu, Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbachata V'nechamata, Damiran B'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shloma Rabba Min Shemayim, V'chayim, Leinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth, and let us all now say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
week.
Shalom.
We will be back in Atlanta tomorrow afternoon, and I can't wait to be together with you again in the week that follows. Have a great week and Chag Sameach.
You too.
Chag
Travel
Sameach.
safely.
Chag Sameach. Thank you, thank you,
Chag
thank you,
Sameach.
thank you. Thank you all. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.